said it's longer than the boat. And the boat was almost like 32-footer end to end.
To a casual traveler peering down from a small bush plane, Lake Iliamna looks like perfection pressed into water. A sheet of silver framed by endless spruce, its surface so still it mirrors the sky like glass. But the people who call this corner of southwest Alaska home know that calm is an illusion. They've watched sudden ripples crawl across the lake when the wind is dead. They've hauled nets that come back shredded as though something with teeth tested their strength. They've listened to the low, rolling sounds that carry across the night, too deep for waves, too heavy for wind. Generations of fishermen, pilots, and hunters have a phrase they use with a half-smile that isn't quite a joke. The lake decides what it keeps. Boats vanish without wreckage. Nets sink without a trace. Shadows slip beneath canoes just long enough to show a spine or a fin before the dark swallows it whole. Visitors laugh at the stories until they spend a night alone on the shore and hear the water breathe. Legends here are not fairy tales. They are warnings wrapped in memory. Elders talk of a presence older than the forests and as patient as the tides. Children are told to step back when the shallows suddenly churn. Bush pilots speak of long, pale shapes gliding hundreds of feet below their wings, vast enough to stretch across a runway. No photograph has ever captured it. No sonar scan has pinned it down. And yet the accounts continue, steady as the salmon runs. It's a mystery that feels less like folklore and more like a waiting truth. Somewhere beneath that mirror-calm surface is a world few have dared to imagine, a labyrinth of trenches and cold currents, a blackness where light is swallowed and sound bends. Whatever moves down there does so in silence, unseen until it chooses to rise. And when it does, the people say, the lake takes something in return. Outsiders dismiss the stories as trick light or oversized fish. But those who live in Iliamna Village, Pedro Bay, and the scattered cabins along the shore will tell you in quiet voices that they've heard the water speak. And once you've heard it, you never forget the sound. Lake Iliamna is Alaska's largest lake, yes. But to those who know it, the size isn't what matters. It's the feeling that the water is watching, that the lake itself is alive, and that something in its depths is waiting. They call it many things, Alaska's shadow sea, the silent giant, but the name that lingers is the simplest, the lake that waits beneath. It is not a place of quick thrills or easy answers. It is a vast, patient body of water that seems to breathe in secret. Travelers feel it before they see it, a slow pressure in the chest, like standing at the edge of an unseen drop. Lake Iliamna doesn't merely hold water. It holds a presence. Stand on its rocky shore at dusk, and you'll sense it. The hush that settles over the spruce, the way the air cools as if something enormous has risen just out of sight. Locals speak of that silence as if it's alive. They describe the lake as a thing that listens. It watches. It remembers. The elders say it is not a monster in the way movies show monsters. It is older, heavier, more inevitable. Something that does not need to announce itself to be real. It is a force you respect because it does not care if you believe. This is not a tale about a peaceful stretch of Alaskan wilderness. This is the story of a water so wide you can lose a city inside it, so deep it swallows sound, and so mysterious it has been called the inland ocean of the north. This is Lake Iliamna, the lake that waits, the lake that watches, the lake that remembers. Stand on a bluff above Lake Iliamna, and the horizon bends away until it swallows the sky. At first glance, you might mistake it for an inland sea, and in nearly every way it is. This is Alaska's largest lake, stretching almost 80 miles from end to end and spreading more than 25 miles across at its widest. To picture its immensity, imagine dropping the entire city of Los Angeles into its waters and still finding room along the edges for another metropolis. The surface alone covers more than 1,000 square miles, a sheet of shimmering silver that reflects clouds like a second sky, yet numbers barely capture its presence. Step closer and you notice the air carries a different weight, crisp with glacial cold and a faint tang of the ocean. The water is so clear in the shallows that pebbles sparkle like coins on a sunlit floor. But just a few yards out, the bottom disappears into an abrupt blue-black nothingness. It is a depth that invites both wonder and unease. Isolation seals the lake in a quiet almost impossible to find elsewhere. No highway cuts across this landscape. No lattice of power lines hums in the distance. The few settlements, small villages like Iliamna, Pedro Bay, and New Halen, are scattered like pebbles on a vast, dark canvas. Most visitors arrive by float plane or boat after hours of travel over unbroken wilderness. Stand on the shore and you may hear nothing but the sigh of wind through spruce and the occasional wing beat of an eagle. It feels less like a place on a map and more like a pocket of the earth that time forgot. Its remoteness is not just geography. It is part of the lake's character, a living shield for the unknown. Here, the wilderness is not a backdrop but a force. Weather can shift in minutes. Skies that shine blue at dawn can churn into slate gray by noon, and sudden squalls sweep the water into whitecaps that batter even seasoned pilots and boatmen. This unpredictability breeds stories of boats that vanish between one radio call and the next, of pilots forced down by sudden fog who glimpse something, massive stirring below before they climb back into the clouds. The surrounding landscape reinforces the feeling that Lake Iliamna is an entire world unto itself. Snow-capped mountains ring the horizon, their flanks carved by glaciers, and their valleys cut with rushing rivers that feed the lake with icy clarity. Spruce forests stretch for miles, dense and silent, hiding bears and moose in their shadowed depths. Caribou herds wander the tundra in the distance, and salmon surge upstream in numbers that turn the water into a living, flashing mosaic of silver. Everywhere you look, the wilderness insists on its scale and its secrecy. At night, the lake becomes a mirror for the cosmos. The northern sky blooms with stars. And when the aurora dances, curtains of green and violet ripple across the water, as if the heavens themselves have come down to glide across the surface. But even this beauty carries an undercurrent of tension. The same darkness that reveals the stars hides everything beneath the waves. Below the glittering surface lies a volume of water so vast that science has only begun to map it. In some trenches, the lake plunges more than 1,000 feet, deeper than the Empire State Building is tall. It is a black world of crushing pressure and perpetual cold, a perfect vault for anything that does not wish to be found. To stand on these shores is to feel small in a way that humbles and unsettles. The lake seems endless, as if it could absorb all the cities of the world and remain unchanged. And in that sheer immensity lies its greatest secret. Whatever lives beneath has all the space it needs to hide, to hunt and to wait, for all its inland vastness. Lake Iliamna is not sealed away from the wider world. A quiet river named the Kvichak flows from its western edge, winding more than 50 miles through muskeg and marsh until it empties into Bristol Bay, and beyond that, the Bering Sea. This single waterway is more than an outlet for glacier melt and salmon runs. It is a hidden corridor between two realms, a liquid highway that links the lake's fresh depths to the salt and surge of the open ocean. That connection changes everything. It means the lake is not a closed bowl, but a breathing system, one that inhales and exhales with the tides. Each year, countless salmon follow the river upstream, carrying the taste of the ocean into the lake's heart. Along with them come seals that ride the current like silver torpedoes, appearing where no seal should be. Locals have even spotted beluga whales, snow-white ghosts of the sea, rolling and diving miles inland, their calls echoing against the spruce-lined banks. If creatures as specialized as marine mammals can adapt to this fresh, cold water, what else might travel the same hidden artery? Scientists note that the Kvichak's flow is strong and deep enough to carry more than fish. Storm surges and seasonal floods can drive enormous volumes of seawater far upriver. An animal following the salmon or chasing prey could slip from the Bering Sea into Lake Iliamna without ever surfacing for a human to see. Once inside, it would find an environment almost tailor-made for disappearance. Hundreds of square miles of frigid water, food-rich currents, and countless coves and trenches where it could live undetected for decades, perhaps centuries. The thought is both thrilling and unsettling. Because if small marine visitors can make the journey, why not something larger? Something older? Imagine an apex predator evolved for the ocean's pressures, drawn inland by the scent of salmon. discovering a freshwater world as deep as a skyscraper and as wide as a city, then staying generation after generation, learning the lake's hidden thermals and dark valleys. The evidence of ocean-lake exchange is everywhere. Salt traces in the water chemistry, tide-driven fluctuations in current speed, even marine plankton found in the deeper strata. It all whispers the same possibility, that the boundaries we draw between sea and lake mean little to the creatures that travel through cold, black water. The Kvichik River is a doorway, and a doorway, once opened, invites something to cross. On the surface, Lake Iliamna seems like a single, calm sheet of water, but beneath that silvery skin lies a world layered and complex. Scientists who study its depths describe it as a living column of contrasting temperatures and currents, a vertical wilderness where light and sound behave in unexpected ways. Understanding those hidden mechanics explains why something large could remain undetected for generations. Start with the thermocline, a sharp divide where warm upper water meets the frigid depths. In summer, sunlight heats the first few dozen feet until it is almost pleasant to swim, but below that thin layer the temperature drops suddenly, sometimes by more than 20 degrees. This isn't just a cold barrier, it is a shield. Sonar signals, those pings used by researchers to map the bottom or track fish, lose strength as they pass through layers of drastically different temperature and density. Sound bends, scatters, and fades. A creature lingering just beneath the thermocline could hover a mere 30 feet below a boat and remain invisible to both technology and human eyes. Light behaves no better. Even on the brightest days, illumination plunges rapidly into darkness. Fine glacial silt washed down from surrounding mountains hangs in the water like microscopic dust, catching the sun and swallowing it. Beyond a certain depth, the world turns a dense midnight blue, then black. Divers who venture down speak of a quiet so complete it feels physical, like a heavy blanket pressing against the skin. Below 200 feet, visibility is nearly zero. A diver's own hand can vanish before reaching the mask. And then there is the sheer pressure of depth. In places, the lake floor lies more than 1,000 feet down, roughly the height of the Empire State Building flipped upside down and submerged. The weight of that much water creates an environment inhospitable to casual exploration. Robotic submersibles can descend, but their cameras struggle against the silt and cold. The few mapping missions conducted so far have covered only narrow slices of the lake's bottom, leaving vast areas completely uncharted. It is entirely possible that deep trenches, underwater caves, or collapsed lava tubes exist where instruments have never reached. Currents complicate the picture further. Fed by glacial streams and mountain runoff, the lake is in constant slow motion, creating eddies and subsurface rivers that can shift suddenly. A large creature moving with those currents would leave almost no trace. Even a massive body could drift silently, using the water's natural flow as cover, its movements masked by the constant, subtle circulation. Ecologists point out another intriguing detail, a food supply capable of sustaining something big. Every summer, millions of sockeye salmon flood into the lake and its tributaries, an endless conveyor of protein-rich prey. Seals follow, and where seals thrive, so can larger predators. This annual migration is a feast that could support an apex hunter indefinitely, eliminating the need for long-distance travel or frequent surfacing. Science can describe why Lake Iliamna is the perfect hiding place, but the most unsettling evidence comes from the people who live and work along its shores. For decades, their stories have flowed like the lake's own currents, steady, persistent, impossible to ignore. Fishermen are usually the first to speak. They know every mood of this water, every change in current or sudden chill in the wind. Yet even the most seasoned admit to moments they can't explain. Some tell of casting heavy salmon nets only to feel a violent tug, as if a submerged freight train had seized the line. When they haul the gear back, thick nylon cords are sliced clean through, not frayed or tangled, but sheared, as though something with teeth, or something sharper, passed through. A few say entire nets have disappeared, their anchors still intact, the floats drifting back to shore days later like scattered bones. Bush pilots add their own accounts. Flying low over the lake's expanse, They describe shadows that move with unsettling purpose. One veteran aviator reported a dark shape nearly the length of his float plane gliding beneath the surface, slow and deliberate, impossible to mistake for a school of fish. Another pilot swears he watched a pair of enormous forms traveling side by side, surfacing just enough to catch the light before sinking again into the black. Instrument panels recorded nothing unusual, yet he says the images burned into his memory as if branded there. Villagers have their stories too, quiet, matter-of-fact recollections shared around evening fires. Parents warn children not to play near certain coves when the water turns suddenly glassy or when strange ripples spread without wind. Elders speak of nights when the air itself seems to hum, a low vibration felt more than heard. Moments before the water bulges, as though something enormous stirs below. A few describe wakes that appear and vanish in dead calm, carving wide arcs across the moonlit surface. Visitors occasionally stumble into these experiences. A group of wildlife photographers once camped on a western bluff to capture the northern lights. Around midnight, as green ribbons unfurled across the sky, they heard a deep, resonant splash, too heavy for a salmon, too deliberate for falling rock. Scanning the dark water, they caught a glimpse of something broad and pale, rolling just under the surface. Then nothing but spreading rings of disturbed water. Their recordings captured the splash, but no visible creature. They left at dawn, shaken and silent. Skeptics dismiss such accounts as tricks of light, echoes in the fog, or the overactive imagination that thrives in vast wilderness. But the sheer consistency of the descriptions, massive shapes, slow, deliberate movement, sudden, violent force, has kept the legend alive. These are not campfire tales told for cheap thrill. They are observations from hunters, pilots, and villagers who spend their lives on the lake and know its every quirk. Over the years, state biologists and university researchers have launched sporadic expeditions, dragging sonar arrays and underwater cameras across the deepest trenches. They have captured schools of salmon, isolated seals, and the occasional stray beluga, but no definitive proof of anything larger. Still, even the scientists admit their surveys cover only fragments of the lake's 1,000 square miles. One researcher put it bluntly after a week of fruitless scanning. If something wants to stay hidden here, we'd never know. Each new story adds another layer to the mystery. A pilot glimpses an immense fin. A fisherman hauls back a net torn as if by steel blades. A family hears the lake hum and watches the water swell without wind. Individually, they could be dismissed. Together, they form a chorus. Quiet, persistent, impossible to silence. And through that chorus runs a single thread of certainty. Something in Lake Iliamna moves unseen, and those who have felt its presence carry the memory like a shadow that never leaves. Long before pilots began reporting shadows or fishermen returned with shredded nets, the people who lived along the shores of Lake Iliamna already knew that the water was not to be taken lightly. Their knowledge did not come from maps or instruments, but from centuries of careful observation, preserved in stories, songs, and sacred carvings. These were warnings, etched into memory and tradition, meant to teach respect for the lake and survival within its wild embrace. Among the Tlingit, there is a tale of Gunakadait, a massive creature said to rise from the water with a force strong enough to overturn canoes and drag men beneath the waves. It was not a story meant for entertainment or to frighten children into obedience. It was guidance for those who relied on the lake for food and travel. Elders taught that when the surface of the water darkened without storm clouds, or when ripples appeared without wind, it was time to retreat to safety. Those who ignored the warning often did not return. The message was simple: respect the lake, and it may grant life. Underestimate it, and it could take life without hesitation. Farther west, the Aleut people told of Jignook, creatures that moved in coordinated hunting packs beneath the lake's surface. Fishermen were advised never to venture alone, to maintain constant vigilance, and to recognize the subtle changes in the water, sudden swirling currents or a shadow passing beneath a boat, as signals of approaching danger. Aleut songs describe animals powerful enough to break wooden vessels apart, circling and striking without warning. Each song, each verse, served as a detailed record of the lake's predators, preserving knowledge through rhythm, repetition, and narrative. These stories were not confined to words alone. Carvings on totem poles depict elongated bodies with fins and spines, arching in poses that suggest both movement and menace. Ceremonial songs describe patterns of swimming and hunting, conveying to listeners the behaviors of creatures that could not easily be seen. Every element, from the sharpness of a fin to the undulating curves of a long, shadowy body, was meticulously recorded to teach and warn future generations. It was practical knowledge cloaked in myth, a survival guide encoded in art and oral tradition. Over time, these legends merged with later observations, forming a tapestry of belief and caution that spans centuries. When modern pilots glimpsed massive shapes beneath the water, or fishermen found nets shredded beyond explanation, the stories of Gunakadayat and Jig-Nook were recalled with quiet reverence. What outsiders dismissed as superstition was understood locally as accumulated wisdom. The lake had always spoken, and the people had always listened. The combination of legend and observation gave Lake Iliamna a unique identity, a body of water that could nurture and destroy in equal measure. Salmon runs brought life and sustenance, while the depths concealed forces that could take it away without warning. The lake was a classroom, a laboratory, and a cautionary tale all at once. Every ripple, every shadow, every sudden shift in wind or current carried meaning, and the people who respected those signs survived. Those who did not, whether by curiosity, arrogance, or simple misfortune, were often claimed by the very waters they thought they could master. Even today, echoes of these ancient warnings linger. Modern villagers, pilots, and researchers still refer to the stories when describing strange sightings or unexplained events. They remind each other that the lake is older than memory and broader than maps, and that beneath its placid surface, history, danger, and mystery are intertwined. The lessons of generations are still relevant. Pay attention, respect the rules, and understand that some forces cannot be controlled or fully comprehended. The lake will accept what it chooses and conceal what it wishes. And in those depths, the line between legend and reality becomes almost impossible to distinguish. Lake Iliamna's legends endure because the lake itself endures, vast, deep, and patient. It waits silently, holding its secrets beneath layers of water, history, and shadow, and it reminds every traveler, fisherman, and observer that not everything can or should be known. In its dark heart, the creatures of story may still roam, as real as the water around them and as untouchable as the myths that preserve them. Lake Iliamna remains, as it always has, both breathtaking and terrifying. From the air, it stretches like a polished mirror reflecting mountains, sky, and clouds. From the shore, it whispers through waves and wind, hinting at the unseen depths below. And beneath that placid surface lies a world few will ever witness, a world that has inspired fear, respect, and fascination for generations. It is a place where the line between science and legend blurs. Thermoclines, deep trenches, and hidden currents make it a perfect refuge for creatures unseen. Salmon surge through its rivers, seals slip silently into its bays, and the occasional beluga wanders far from the sea, proving that the impossible is sometimes real. Layered upon this natural complexity are the whispers of fishermen, pilots, and villagers, reports of shadows, torn nets, and disturbances too large and deliberate to be fish. And long before any of them, ancient warnings preserved by Tlingit and Aleut communities told of predators powerful enough to overturn canoes, animals patient and immense, moving in the water like living shadows. The lake holds these truths and mysteries together, a silent archive of life and legend. It gives life through its salmon runs, nourishes those who respect its rhythms, and takes without warning those who underestimate its depths. Every ripple, every shadow, every shift in the wind is a reminder that Lake Iliamna is not merely a body of water. It is a sentinel, a keeper of secrets, and a mirror to our fascination with the unknown. For outsiders, it is simply Alaska's largest lake, a scenic expanse to photograph or fly over. For those who dwell near its shores, it is alive with stories and presence, a force that cannot be tamed or fully understood. Its depths hold shadows that may never be identified, currents that may never be traced, and creatures that may never be catalogued. Yet the possibility of their existence is enough to shape behavior, to instill respect, and to keep legends alive. As night falls and stars scatter across the sky, the lake reflects them, shimmering as if to remind us that some mysteries are eternal. The water waits beneath, silent but aware, patient but powerful. Those who visit can admire its beauty, measure its depth, and marvel at its scale, but the lake itself reserves the right to conceal its deepest truths. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Some places are not meant to be fully understood. Some forces are too vast, too ancient, and too secretive to be captured by camera, net, or memory. Lake Iliamna endures, as it always has, vast, mysterious, and quietly waiting for the next generation to peer into its depths, to wonder, and to remember that some secrets are meant to remain hidden. Even after centuries of stories, sightings, and scientific exploration, Lake Iliamna keeps its deepest secrets tightly locked beneath the waves. Divers, researchers, and adventurers have all tried to uncover what lies below, yet every expedition is met with the same invisible wall of cold, pressure, and darkness. The lake is more than just water. It is a vault, a place where the rules of the surface no longer apply. Those who venture near its uncharted trenches describe an almost tangible presence, a feeling that the depths themselves are aware. A sudden change in water temperature, a ripple with no source, or a shadow passing far below can stop the bravest in their tracks. Some fishermen say that when the lake is particularly calm, they can hear a low, rolling sound that seems to come from miles below, a vibration that resonates through both boat and body. The sound is unlike any storm, wind, or engine. It is something alive, moving, and patient. Reports of massive shapes persist, moving in ways that defy explanation. Too large to be ordinary fish, too slow to be whales, too deliberate to be currents. Even sonar arrays, dropped repeatedly over years, have picked up echoes that vanish before they can be analyzed. Objects that are sometimes hinted at, glimpsed in shadow or fleeting movement, never return in the same form, never to be captured definitively. It is as if the lake itself controls what can be seen, allowing the occasional glimpse to tease human curiosity but never satisfy it. And yet, the lake is not entirely hostile. The salmon runs that sustain humans and wildlife alike continue, and the occasional seals and belugas remind observers that life can thrive here. But life and mystery coexist uneasily. For every glimpse of natural beauty, there is the reminder of the unknown that waits below. Ancient, immense, and indifferent to human fascination. Legends and modern accounts converge in this space. Elders' warnings, pilot sightings, and fishermen's stories all point to one truth. The lake is vast, patient, and mostly hidden. It is a kingdom where the rules of the surface hold little sway, where shadows move with purpose, and where creatures, whatever they may be, exist beyond our comprehension. Perhaps this is why Lake Iliamna continues to captivate imagination. It is a place where reality and legend blend, where science meets mystery, and where the unknown is not a threat but a constant companion. Every ripple, every shadow, every unexplained disturbance is a reminder that some worlds exist just beneath our awareness. And in Lake Iliamna, the unknown is enormous, silent, and always waiting.